Hi, everybody. I'm here today with Adam Cota, who is our Vice President of Advanced Analytics. Adam, today we're going to talk about all your exciting work. As we've been kind of discussing the importance that's in front of us is to really understand if we really want to serve students one by one, and we really want to get to a personalized experience that optimizes success for every learner, we really do need to understand who that learner is, and as much as we can about the impacts of how they interact with our system and with everything we do.
Yep.
So your team is set up to do that. And it's hard, complex work, and it's inspiring work. It's so inspiring that we recently, as you know, got a $4.9 million grant from the Gates Foundation to help us to set up the infrastructure and capacity to do this research. And not only do the research, but then reason about it and report on it and drive change in our practice. So it's super exciting. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
And I'd like to, before we sort of dive into all of the nerdy technical components of this complex work, I'd like to just ask you, your why. Like,
Yeah.
why is this line of research and this approach interesting to you, and how does it kind of connect with who you are in your own experience?
Yeah, so I think it starts with the importance of education in general for me. So as a first generation college student, I grew up in a family where my father was a native Spanish speaker. He grew up in rural New Mexico, actually, and we were fortunate. He was able to go to the military, get a little bit of a competency-based education, work at a hospital, and we were raised in a middle-class family. But still, we were first-generation college students. Education ended up transforming our lives, really. And I've seen that really left an imprint on me. Going to UC Berkeley and then on to Harvard for graduate school gave me opportunities that I never would have had an opportunity. It transformed our lives. So I think first the impact of education within our lives has just been very visible, and now the opportunities I'm able to provide my kids is just what I never had, what my father never had. And I want to make sure that I give that opportunity to as many students as I can. I think the other piece of it that fits in is that oftentimes when we talk about equitable access and we look at data across the country, we cut it by ethnicity, we cut it by income, and when I say we, the industry, the higher education, overall tends to cut it that way. But I know that these are not monolithic populations. I know my experience is not necessarily representative of every Latino American that's out there, right? I've had very different experiences than some other individuals. At the same time, some of my experiences may resonate with people that have a different ethnicity or a different income level. So for us to really optimize the outcomes for each of our students, we need to understand it beyond just the high-level labels. We need to understand the very specific experiences, even the mindsets and beliefs and the needs that individuals have that will really guide how they respond to the experiences we put in front of them.
Yeah, that's an incredible experience you've had, first of all, and that's really heady work. I mean, how do you do that? How do you understand that unique student profile, learner profile that's kind of like a fingerprint?
Yeah.
And then how do you figure out how that fingerprint is interacting with all these complex moments in our WGU experience?
Yeah, and it is complex work for sure. I think to start, I think you've referred to the data cloud around the student, the persistent progressive profile that we're building. And as we continue to build NGP, that'll get more and more and more advanced. But right now, even the current state that we're in, there are so many data points that are surrounding each student that we have. And it starts at their application. We get their zip code. We get their survey data with the personal learning guide, the course planning tools. We have data about how they're performing in their courses, the level of engagement. All of that data cloud around the student provides so much rich information, even the mentor notes that mentors are putting in about their students. It contains so much information, and that's I think what really caused us to form the advanced analytics team, is to make sure that we can leverage that data, that fingerprint around the student, and put it together in models so that we can better reason about each individual student, to understand their profile, to understand how we anticipate they will react to different situations, whether it's a friction point or a momentum builder for that student.
So that's amazing. Like, can you just give me and give all of us a couple of examples of the types of learning that have been coming out of this? I know it's early days and you've been setting up sort of the infrastructure to do this work, but what's it producing?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of examples that we can talk about. We know that there's friction points in terms of the application process and going from application to an enrolled student. One of the things that we're finding is that in the moment from application to getting a decision, which is requesting a transcript, that was where most of the gap was coming from in terms of new start conversion rates for our students of color. About 65% of it was just getting to the point of getting a decision. When we dug into that deeper, it likely is the transcript request process, actually receiving the transcript. And there's first generation students, lower income students. Those there's different profiles that are impacted by that to greater extents. Now, if we can resolve that friction point for those students, then we will close the gap. And if we close that, eliminate that friction point for all students, we'll end up closing the access gap. So that's one example. Another example that we're finding is we've been analyzing mentor notes, and we're finding that students that have a mention of some sort of technical friction point. So if they are having problems with their webcam, if they're having problems, with their Excel, if there's various technical issues that are mentioned in the mentor notes, those students are dropping at a significantly higher rate. And as you can imagine, that is not evenly spread across all learner profiles. Some learners are impacted by that to a greater extent than others.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And I'm sure folks want to know, I think all of us who work at WGU understand that this data that you're talking about, it lives in all of these different siloed systems all over the place.
Yeah.
Little bits of data from enrollment or from our, community of care or from program development. And you're basically sleuthing for that data and finding it and reasoning about it. How are you doing that?
Well, it's a big part of it is some of the work from ed tech to build the data lake is integrating a lot of this data into different data tables, all around the data lake. But that's a huge enabler of this work. So the data infrastructure is definitely more advanced now than it was a couple of years ago. So they deserve a lot of credit for that. And then we're querying each of those tables and aggregating, much larger data sets together that we can then train our models on and analyze. So a lot of it is the data infrastructure, which is, there's still some opportunities in terms of learning resources that we need to pull in. There's still some where, they live in maybe outside the data lake. But it's becoming easier and easier to do that because of the data infrastructure. And then, yes, it's a lot of SQL queries and a lot of time from the data scientists and data analysts on our teams.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you next. I mean, what kind of a team does it take to do this?
Well, it's really all of us, and we have an advanced analytics team, but we're one component of this. We've got the learning analytics team, we've got the faculty experience team. On the upper funnel, there's marketing analytics as well. So there's many different analytic teams that are actually involved in this work. We've got a team of data scientists. We've got people that are psychometricians on some of the other teams on the learning analytics team. We have research scientists that understand more of the learning science aspects. So it really has to be an interdisciplinary team of some really innovative thinkers. I think nobody can give us the playbook for how to do this exactly. So we are on the cutting edge of this. That's one of the reasons why the Gates Foundation was interested in investing in us. And they want to make sure that we're collaborating with others and that we're frankly helping lead in this direction. So I think they were very compelled by that vision, but it's going to take a lot of us. And frankly, everybody that touches a student should be thinking about what are the friction points, what are the momentum builders, how does that impact different types of learners. Their perspective is going to be an important part of that dialogue and conversation as well. The data can only take us so far. we also need to integrate that in with some of the experiences so that we can properly interpret the data and get us to the solutions that we need to.
Yeah, I just reflecting on my own experience. I remember doing work down in the Rio Grande Valley and really talking with faculty and program leaders at the start of the project who would talk about those students, right? Mm-hmm. Those students are never going to be successful in this very complicated degree. And I thought, those students, and as we started doing this kind of research, place-based research as well as friction research related to the school and the program itself, it was clear that we had piled high all of these frictions from simple things like housing insecurity that these students were facing. Many of them lived like 60 miles away from the campus, and there was no public transportation system, so they were like trying to hitchhike to school, to internet access, to second language barriers. I mean, just loads of frictions, to parking. Just absence of parking. And it really struck me at the time, wow, we're taking these outcomes of this learner population who were so incredibly resilient because they got through all that. They did hitchhike to school. Yeah. Right? They did park their car 2 miles away and walk through the heat. They did it all. Yeah. Those students were students who were resilient enough. Those students who were successful were resilient enough to climb all of those mountains that were in front of their success. And I feel like your call to people, because I remember at the time thinking, oh gosh, what do we do about these problems? Because some of them are things we can solve with program design and policy, and some of them are things that take a lot more advocacy beyond the university experience itself. So I love that call to everyone, because this really is about everyone identifying those friction points and feeling agency in their own work. Yep. To call them out, to articulate them, and start thinking about solves. I really love that. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you is for our solver army that we have out there, over 5,000 faculty who could be identifying friction points and figuring out solves and bringing these things to light. Like, what tools do you think are going to come out of this work for faculty to be able to see these friction points more clearly? Yeah, so one of the things we're doing right now is not just creating risk scores for students, but trying to understand what are the friction points that students have. And we're loading that into these models, and we hope to surface some of that data to students or to the faculty. So if an individual has a technical issue, or they've had a bad experience with financial aid, if there's any indication that there's a friction point that needs to be addressed, we want to be able to surface that to our faculty so that they don't have to sleuth for all of those individual frictions on their own. We can actually surface those as an indication that there may be a need for support in those areas. So those are the types of things we want to be able to surface information for them. As we progress into this and try and create individualization at scale, there may be other opportunities to create recommendation engines and actually send a recommendation either directly to a student or to a faculty member. So you could imagine saying, okay, this student appears to be off track. Here's the indications that we're getting as to potential reasons why, right? And based on similar students in similar situations, we recommend that you do X, Y, and Z. Now, we don't want to take away the agency of the faculty. Their perspective is very important, but hopefully that will help arm them with additional information that will make it easier for them to perform their role. Yeah. Following up on the story about your experience in Texas, that as we're going out and having conversations with other institutions, one thing that is really striking to them is that we're taking ownership of this. We're not saying, oh, these students have challenges, and just explaining why maybe the outcomes are not the same for all students. We're not just trying to explain it. And we're not saying that it's up to the students to solve their own issues. We're taking ownership of it. So we want to recognize that, yes, different students are starting at different starting points. The question for us is,
what do we do about it?
Yeah.
Where do we provide more support? Where do we provide different support? How do we change our experience so that we can meet the students where they're at? And even just that mindset and that approach, I think is truly innovative and is part of what we need to lead on. We need more institutions to adopt that mindset.
Oh, that is at the heart of what being a student-centered institution means. We are about making sure that students get in, that they thrive, they complete, and our reputation, our entire reputation, is based on our ability to do that. Not the opposite, which unfortunately many institutions' entire reputation is about who they keep out.
Yep.
Right.
And this ultimately, with our key results, this extends to to employment outcomes, to postgraduate success as well. Because a lot of individuals with these friction points or these different experiences, they need different support in order to get the job that they need as well. So this is going to extend well beyond even just graduation, but to the full learner journey that they're on.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love that. And I love the idea of getting some of these insights directly to students and help them to really play the game and get to goal. So it's amazing work. It's truly next level work. I can't imagine there are many other institutions in the United States or in the world that are taking this deep a dive in understanding what these frictions are and solving for them at scale. It's incredibly inspiring. Thank you for joining us today. We're really proud of all the work you're doing.
Thank you, Marty.
Provost Monthly Update is your opportunity to share good news happening across the academic organization. Let us know when you or someone you work with has been involved with something exciting and noteworthy. Reach out to us with your news and story ideas at academicnews@wgu.edu. Thanks for watching the Provost Monthly Update. We'll see you next time.